Thank you all for being here. We're joined by the 2023 finalists for the Leslie Bradshaw Award for Middle Grade and Young Adult Literature. For those of you who are not familiar with Literary Arts, we are a nonprofit, community-based arts organization with more than 35 years serving readers and writers. Our mission is to engage readers, support writers, and to inspire the next generation with great literature. Our programs include Portland Arts and Lectures, programs for youth, the Oregon Book Awards and Fellowships Program, and the Portland Book Festival. We also offer reader seminars, writing classes, and free events like this one all year round. Thank you all for being here. Thank you, finalists, for making time. I know March is kind of like a bonkers time for everyone for some reason. I don't know. It's spring. But thank you for being here, and I really hope to see you in person at the ceremony on April 3rd. Okay, our first reader today is Susan Hill Long. She is the author of The Care and Keeping of Freddie from Simon & Schuster.
Hello, thank you. Thanks for being here, and it's wonderful to be here with the other finalists in this category. Really fun. This is the cover of my book in the back, and I'll just start reading. Chapter 1. Give Freddie a better life. It was January when Georgia Weathers wrote that note and taped it to the side of Freddie's tank. Now somehow it was June. The ink had faded, the paper had curled. Freddie's life was not better. And if Patty Van Winkle just said what Georgia thought she said, then things were about to get worse. Georgia's best friend, Maria Elena Garcia, stood beside her at the Pet Stop pet shop. Maria lifted her eyebrows, poked up her glasses, and frowned around the pen between her teeth. Georgia swallowed hard. Did you say hissing cockroaches? Ay, Dios mío, Maria muttered as she pushed aside a lock of black hair that dropped as if in shock across her cheek. Maria's family was from Mexico on her father's side. Her mother was from Mexico too, the town of Mexico, Maine. Maria liked to copy her grandmother's dramatic expressions when circumstances called for them. Correct, said Patty Van Winkle. There's a tri-state shortage of crickets. Maria popped the pen from her mouth, flicked her hair back, and flipped open a small spiral-bound notebook. Interesting, she muttered. Definitely jot-worthy. Maria declared many things interesting and jot-worthy. Many things caused Maria's dark eyes to sharpen behind the pink plastic frames of her eyeglasses. She longed to be a writer of romance or possibly suspense. Don't you worry, Georgia, Patty Van Winkle said. Bearded dragons aren't as picky as you'd think. Freddie will gobble them right up. No problem. A bug's a bug. Georgia felt a bobble in her chest. It felt, gulp, like a bug. Why was it that cockroaches seemed infinitely worse than crickets, and hissing cockroaches seemed much worse than regular non-hissing ones? I have to think about the nutritional alternative, she said. All righty then. Patty put a box of what were almost certainly cockroaches onto the counter, as if Georgia didn't have any choice about buying them, which she supposed she didn't. You'll see, Patty said, cockroaches will suit Freddie's reptilian palate. They'll warm his cold-blooded heart. Blythe, George's mother, had always been fond of surprises. The day Georgia got Freddie, Patty Van Winkle had accepted delivery of a bearded dragon by mistake. The pet stop does not handle this sort of unique, one-of-a-kind exotic creature, Patty told Georgia's mother that day. They all three stared at the baby lizard with his warty hide and a jagged edge of spines along his throat. I'll be shipping him back pronto. Oh, no, you will not, Patty Van Winkle. Georgia's mother had knelt before Georgia in the pet shop. Blonde curled hair fell shining to her shoulders. Her coral pink lipstick had gotten onto her teeth, which Georgia could plainly see because of how her mother was smiling in a big way that made Georgia feel strange in her stomach, as if she'd swallowed an ice cube whole. Blythe's cotton dress was crisp and pretty under her pink cardigan sweater, and it had little buttons all up and down the front, from the collar to the hem above the knee. I am determined to purchase this exotic creature for my daughter, her mother had said, to have and to hold. She ain't gonna marry it, Blythe, said Patty. Blythe smiled, cupping George's chin. This lizard represents my love for you. Cold-blooded, said Patty. Blythe stared straight into Georgia's eyes. Undying, she said. Says here, Patty was scanning a pamphlet marked, The Care and Keeping of Your Bearded Dragon. They live 8 to 15 years in captivity. What do you suppose happens after that? Blythe's eyes narrowed, and she sliced a glare at Patty. 8 years, 15 years, who cares? It's a lifetime. She turned back to Georgia. It's forever. Then she kissed Georgia's cheek, smack, smack, and stood up. Georgia, she said, you will remember this day. Georgia remembered all right. That was the day Blythe left town with Lyle and Zicky. Now a clacking, shifting, scrabbling noise came from the cardboard box, a noise like pebbles shifting underfoot, pulled by a wave at the beach. Georgia sighed, although Blythe had always frowned on sighing. You sound like a little old lady at all of 8.5. Georgia was 11 now and had gone on to sigh many times. Sighing cooled her internal worry machine. Hissing cockroaches. Freddie's life was definitely worse. Just then, a little bell jingled above the door. Georgia and Maria whipped around to look at the door and the boy coming in it. He was about Georgia's age. He had red hair and blue eyes, and his ears stuck out. The tips of them were sunburnt. He wore baggy shorts and mismatched socks and brand new white sneakers with rubber toe bumpers. And his t-shirt was printed with a message, Keep on truckin'. Georgia had never seen him in her life. Maria's eyebrows shot up under blunt cut bangs. She poked the bridge of her glasses and started jotting. Patty smiled encouragingly from her side of the counter. Welcome to the pet stop. The boy glanced at Georgia and Maria. They sent me for boat food. Patty repeated it. Boat food. That's what I said. The boy jammed his fists in the pockets of his shorts and hunched his shoulders up near the stick-out ears. Maria was still writing. The point of her tongue poked out from the corner of her mouth, and her black hair was starting to frizz a little, what with all the humidity and excitement in the air. Everybody knew everybody in Prospect Harbor, Maine. It was seldom that a stranger came to town. Georgia stuffed her fists into the front pockets of her shorts. Then she yanked them out again, in case it seemed like she'd copied the boy. She wished she could think of something original to do with her hands. Boat! Burst forth from Patty Van Winkle. You're here for boats food. Is Winslow Farley's fish. That must make you the Farley's new kid. Roland, right? Roland Park? Roland Park nodded one time, chin down, chin up. Well, you've come to the right place, Patty went on. I'm just unboxing stock. Give me a sec. I have to grab it from the back. She disappeared into the back room. Now the pet shop was quiet, except for the sounds of a couple of guinea pigs rustling around in their pine shavings and the click-a-click of Maria's pen. Georgia tried to think of something to say. Eventually, she cleared her throat. The boy stared at her. I'm here for cockroaches, Georgia said loudly. Maria glanced up from her notebook and gave Georgia a pitying look. The boy glided more than walked, a slippery sort of move, to a spinner rack of leashes and collars. He plucked a thin little cat collar off the rack and slipped it into his pocket, all in the blink of an eye. Georgia wasn't even sure of what she'd seen. Had that boy just stolen a cat collar? Maria had seen it too. Her eyes were open wide and so was her mouth. She was about to yell. Maria was not afraid of yelling. And then, for some reason she couldn't say, Georgia shot out her hand and clapped it over Maria's mouth. They were frozen that way, the boy with his hands in his pockets, Maria's eyes bulging, Georgia's hand covering Maria's mouth, when Patty Van Winkle returned carrying a shaker of fish food. Patty's eyes narrowed. It wasn't for nothing that her ex was a police officer, as Patty had said more than once. Georgia said, Maria here was going to cough. Maria obliged. Georgia leveled a look at her, then lowered her hand. Germs, said Maria. Bad. Then she wrote something in her notebook. Patty nodded as if all that seemed perfectly normal, and the boy, Roland Park, gave her the money and took the bag with the fish food and walked out the door without even a thank you. The bell above the door made a cheerful ching-a-ling, which Georgia found unsuitable, considering a crime had just been committed. Maria went after him. Georgia paid for Freddie's box of cockroaches and hustled out the door. That's it.
Thank you, Susan. So lovely to hear from you. Okay, our next reader is Jenn Reese. And Jenn is the author of Every Bird It Prints from Macmillan/Henry Holt.
Hi, everyone. It's an honor to be here with all these wonderful finalists, and Waka T. Brown, who's not here today, is the other finalist. I'm going to read a little bit from Every Bird It Prints. Okay, Chapter 1. Erin Evers rode for the woods. She pedaled furiously. Her shoulders jarred with every bump and dip in the dirt path. She gripped the handlebars tighter and leaned in to the chill morning wind, even as it stung her cheeks and tried to persuade her to turn back. She felt like an arrow shot from her house straight into the trees. She wanted to be an arrow. She wanted to fly as far and as fast as she could, away from school, her mom, and even her friends. In the pocket of her jeans, her phone chimed with a text. A flutter of panic raced up Erin's spine, but she didn't reach for her phone, and she definitely didn't slow down. If anything, it made her legs pump faster. Autumn had turned the forest into a storm of flame-colored leaves. Yellows and oranges and reds fell from the high-up branches and thrashed frantically in the air, trying to make their descent last as long as possible, fighting every bit of the way. The leaves that finally gave up clustered along the path, hiding roots and holes and other dangers beneath their bright disguise. Erin raced along the familiar trail, ducking under branches, dodging left and right. The trees had woven their fingers together overhead so that only the bravest beams of sunlight speckled the ground before her. At one bend, she swerved off the trail completely to hit a jump she'd built years ago. At just the right moment, she yanked the handlebars and soared. That's what she loved about being out here. She didn't have to think. Her body knew what to do and did it. Everything felt right. Her phone chimed again while she was in the air, and she lost control for a second, twisted her handlebars when she should have kept them straight. She crashed back to earth with a thud that she felt from her teeth down to her toes. Only a quick shift of her angle kept her from flying off the bike altogether. Disaster averted, but barely. That's what made it fun. Then she was back on the trail, racing through the trees again. Her legs found their rhythm. Each rotation of the bike wheels took her further from home, made it easier for her to breathe. She was an arrow, an arrow. If the forest covered the entire state of Oregon, she'd keep flying until she hit the Pacific Ocean. When her phone beeped again, Erin almost screamed with frustration, no matter how fast she went or how far that horrid chime acted as a tether, yanking her back to reality. She was tempted to rip the phone from her pocket and throw it in the woods. Erin sighed and skidded to a stop. For a moment, she simply sat on her bike, one foot planted on the ground for balance, the other still on its pedal and ready to propel her deeper into the trees. All she could hear was her own huffy breaths. But as she recovered, the sounds of the forest emerged, squirrels chasing one another through leaf piles, birds composing songs in the branches, treetops creaking and swaying with old, sturdy bones. The pines soared above everything, still flaunting their green needles amid the autumn colors, as if not even the seasons could tarnish their majesty. A gust of wind raced down the path and smacked into Erin, not unlike a rambunctious puppy, licking her arms and face with wisps of chilly air. The woods wanted her to play. That's all they ever wanted. They didn't care about her grades or if she'd practiced the piece they were learning in band or if she had a new zit threatening to appear on her chin. And the woods definitely didn't care about the name Erin was supposed to be writing on a piece of paper before school today, the name of her crush. Erin shut her eyes and imagined she had a spy dossier on each of her classmates, with their Polaroid clipped to the page detailing their qualifications. They all had pros and cons. Maybe she could make a chart. The plus column could have things like good personal hygiene, shares 3 classes with me, pets every dog they see. The negatives might be rude to teachers, wore an offensive t-shirt that one time, or saw a dog and didn't pet it. There had to be a formula, a right answer. How else did people make such a big decision? It wasn't like the movies where you bumped into someone by your locker, and when they helped you pick up your books, the air exploded with heart eyes emojis. If it were that easy, she'd have started bumping into people months ago. A twisty vine of anxiety wrapped around Erin's chest and squeezed. It was becoming a familiar sensation. She opened her eyes, and the sunlit trees welcomed her back. Maybe she could stay out in the woods forever, build a treehouse, befriend a raccoon, harvest mushrooms for fun and food. Eventually, Jessie and Kayla might even forgive her and come to visit. And when they did, they'd still want to know the name of Erin's crush. Kayla had made that perfectly clear. No one shared unless they all shared. If Erin didn't come up with someone, she'd be ruining the pact for all three of them. The wind tugged at the cuff of Erin's jeans, insistent. 5 more minutes, it begged. Please. How could she say no? Erin pulled out her phone, careful not to read any of the messages, and thumbed it to silent. The vine around her chest relaxed its squeezy grip. Not all the way, but enough for her to breathe again. She pushed off and returned her foot to the pedal where it belonged. The wind raced alongside her as she picked up speed. Soon she would be an arrow flying through the trees once again, until a bird came hurtling down the path, heading straight for her face. And that's it for me.
Thank you, Jen. Our next reader is Sonia Thomas. And Sonia is the author of Sir Fig Newton and the Science of Persistence from Simon & Schuster.
Thank you. Hello, everybody. It's awesome to be here alongside some amazing Oregon authors. And this is Sir Fig Newton and the Science of Persistence. Chapter 1. Fact. Grapes don't always explode with scientific reliability. The microwave had stopped heating, but the little green oval halves looked exactly the same. Refusing to give up, I ignored the graveyard of dissected fruit on the countertop and plucked another from a bowl, cut it almost in half, and then placed it on a plate with 5 other grapes. Even though natural plasmas were rare on Earth, other than lightning or the northern lights, man-made plasmas were everywhere. Just about everybody has seen a TV or computer with a plasma screen. I was still fuzzy on why nuking grapes could cause a plasma ball, something to do with the microwaves trapped in the watery fruit and getting really hot. Whatever the scientific theory, I love the idea of creating my own mini twinkling star, even if it only lasted for a microsecond. I tried to focus on making my experiment precise, but my nose crinkled from the smell wafting in from the crock pot. Dad's chili. With Mom working so much after he lost his job, he was trying his best, but I sure missed Mom's cooking. My cat, Sir Fig Newton, didn't seem to mind the smell. He sat at attention on the kitchen floor with his tummy sprawled out beneath him, so big that he looked like he'd swallowed a basketball, along with the whole Orlando Magic team. I set the plate in the microwave again. My finger hovered in front of the start button. 3rd time's a winner, right, Fig? He chattered, a cross between his dainty meow and a goat's bleat. But before I had a chance to start the microwave, my phone rang. I snatched my cell from my back pocket. My best friend's narrow face filled the screen. Oh, my Einstein, I was just about to do your favorite experiment. Hey, my Rania, Thomas replied. Exploding grapes? Yep. Think it'll really work this time? Ah, I always make it work. You'll never guess what I saw, Thomas said. Can't be as awesome as a grape plasma ball. I gestured to the microwave. The US Capitol, the Washington Monument, and the White House. Do you know that plans for a monument started before Washington was elected president? Ugh, I rolled my eyes. Thomas was over the moon when it came to American history. It was the one teeny tiny reason he'd been excited to move precisely 901 miles away from Florida to Washington, D.C. Sounds neat. But did you know that plasma is the most common state of matter in the universe? And that stars, including our sun, are big balls of plasma? Okay, Thomas chuckled. I'm no match for your stubbornness superpower. I prefer persistent. I held the phone out so it faced the microwave, prepared to be blown away. I hit the start button. 10, 9, 8. A bright yellow spark hissed right at the bridge's skin, joining the two halves of the grate. 5, 4, 3. Just as a third plasma ball ignited, the microwave shut off, along with the kitchen lights. Myra! Dad's voice boomed from down the hall. Fig tore out of the kitchen, and I dashed in the opposite direction. As I ran, my phone flew from my hand, smacked against the cabinet door, and skipped across the kitchen floor. No time to stop. Once I reached the laundry room, I flipped the circuit breaker switch twice. Electricity zoomed back on. I hustled back into the kitchen and braked a few inches before slamming into my dad. The microwave door hung open. A charred, sugary stench tangled with Dad's chili. Using an oven mitt, he was gripping the plate of smoking grapes. You know better than to do this experiment without an adult present. You damage the microwave, or worse. Plus, your mother would kill us both if you blew up the house. His voice wasn't all angry. He mostly sounded exhausted. He wore a faded purple Prince concert tee and ancient running shorts he constantly had to pull up. Tangled kinks crowned his head. Stubble tickled his chin. I called it his stuck-at-home uniform. It was all you had to wear to spend your days surfing the job ads. Dad unplugged the microwave and poked inside the slow cooker. I shifted on my feet, feeling guilty. I'd forgotten about not overloading the outlet. Maybe I should conduct an experiment on what it takes to blow out a circuit. But Mom actually might kill me if I did. Sorry, Dad. He ruffled my curls and said, it's all good. I decided I'd better get out of there before he changed his mind and grounded me. So I scooped myself from the floor and plodded off. Inside my room, I pulled out my phone to text Thomas. A shattered screen stared back at me. I pressed the power button. Nothing. I held the button in longer. The screen remained black. I pushed it over and over, but it was useless. Superheated energy bounced around in my body at 291,000 miles per hour like a star hurtling in space, or like the great plasma balls in the microwave. My head dizzy, I clutched the edge of my dresser. I opened my mouth to scream, but the only sound that escaped was a nervous squeak. I wanted to rush down the hall and beg Dad to take me to the store this very second to get a new cell, or at least persuade him to let me use the family laptop so I could do an internet search on how to fix a broken iPhone. But I hesitated. With Dad's days spent job hunting, his patience was wearing thin. And after my plasma ball experiment had gone wrong, I didn't want to push my luck. I hated that Dad was so miserable since he'd lost his job. I hated that my experiment had caused a power outage. But I really, really hated that my phone was dead. I live in a world of suck, I announced to no one. Well, technically there was an audience of one. Sprawled across my bed, Sir Fig Newton paused his afternoon tongue bath. You get it, don't you, Fig? Fig blinked, an obvious nod to my situation, and resumed grooming his belly with steady determination. My finger dragged across the phone screen, and I set it face down on my dresser. Thomas was gone, and just like that, I had no way to reach him. Thank you.
Thank you, Sonia. And last but not least, here is Jonathan Case. Jonathan is the author of Little Monarchs from Holiday House Publishing.
Thank you. It's such an honor to be here amongst amazing authors and especially because I have a graphic novel. I don't know, it's incredible to be honored this year, and I just wish you all the best with your books. I've enjoyed listening to them. Mine is a graphic novel, so it's going to be a little bit different. I'm going to keep my reading short. I also have some of the original pages behind me. These are watercolor and ink, and I have about 256 of these that make up the graphic novel. It's about a little girl and a brilliant scientist who are following the monarch butterfly migration. And they live in the year 2101. Mammal life is almost gone from the planet, but the scientist has discovered a way where she and this little girl can live above ground in the light of day. They're the only ones who can, really, using some of the scales from the monarch butterfly. So they follow seasonally north and south with the monarchs, trying to perfect this medicine so that they can share it with other people. And every once in a while in the book, you can't really see it, it's a little far away, but I put compass headings and coordinates in. So any place that Elvie and Flora travel is a real place that you can also go yourself, with your kids, your family. The scientist also, in order to get Elvie out of her hair, has Elvie write school assignments in a journal. And so she'll give her some of her own naturalist illustrations and information to sort of base and riff off of for her own writings. So that's what I'm going to read today. I'll read you one of the journal entries, but I just wanted to show you sort of what the book looks like as well, so that you can kind of get an impression. So this is from about the first third of the book. El Dia de los Muertos. There used to be a holiday called the Day of the Dead. It's actually several days long, where people would welcome their dearly departed back home for a little visit. The festival went on at the same time of year that monarchs returned south for the winter, around late October and early November. People celebrating said the butterflies were the spirits coming back. I don't know if anyone really believed that or if it was just a story, but there is a mystery about monarchs that even Flora can't explain. Side note, whenever in the book there's journal entries in red, that's something that Elvie thinks this is probably a fact. And so readers can also understand that it's real science when we get to red writing. It takes the butterflies 4 generations to migrate. In spring, when the overwintering monarchs leave their eucalyptus and pine groves in California and Mexico, they start laying eggs immediately. The first generation hatches, flies farther north, mates, and lays more eggs. This continues through the summer with the second and third generations until most of the migration makes it into the upper half of the United States. Then in late summer, the most amazing thing starts to happen. When 4th generation monarchs hatch and they feel the cold weather coming on, they don't just fly south, they spontaneously become super monarchs. They just stop growing up. That's called diapause. It allows them to live 8 or even 9 times longer than their parents and fly all the way home. They arrive at their overwintering gradually from October through January. No monarch since the great-grandparents have seen those groves, but somehow every generation carries the coordinates inside them. It's not like the mama monarchs whisper directions to their babies either. They fly away and die before the eggs hatch. Now we switch back to black. I wonder sometimes what it'd be like to know something my mama knew. Even if I still couldn't remember her voice or any words she said before she left, what if I could know something like the monarchs do? The closest I come to that is this old record of hers. My grandpa found it on a night range and gave it to her when she was a girl. Flora said they didn't have a way to play it for years. Mama just liked the photo on the album cover. Grandpa Jones was a really good engineer, though, and eventually he made this little rolling gadget that runs a needle around and around and plays the music from a speaker on top. I still have it. I'm not sure how he got it to work. Flora said he used some parts from an RGD walkie-talkie. Pretty smart. Anyway, I like to listen to the music and wonder what she thought about it. And there is a drawing that Flora did of Elvie's mother when they were still together. That's that from me.
Thank you, Jonathan. And I'm going to switch the view really quick so I can see all of you. Thank you so much. That was so wonderful. I love hearing your writing, and it's so, I don't know. I think there's something really special about hearing the writer read their work. It's like how it's meant to be heard, I think. So thank you so much. And I hope to meet you all in person on April 3rd. I'm sad Weka couldn't join us, but I hope she is there. Thank you so much. This recording is going to go on YouTube, so if you all, I'll send it to you all individually so you can share it with your folks too. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot. See you
Bye,
guys
everyone.
soon.
Mhm.
See you soon.
And congrats for being finalists.
Thank you.
All right, I'm gonna hang up now. Bye,
I know.
everyone.